for those of us who started with the animals, like we have this idea that we have to explain to people what's happening to animals and then they will change. And what you're saying, and I think what a lot of the research is saying now is no, you have to change and then you will be able to listen to what's happening to the animals because you can't hear that at the same time as you're actually eating them.
That's exactly what happened to me. I know everyone comes through it slightly in a different way, but for me, like, my heart was closed. The door was just slammed closed on the animal argument, and it was because it was like a crack of it was, like, opened by the environmentalism and the, health that a all of a sudden the
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance of it became so overwhelming, I couldn't deal with it anymore.
I don't know whether you think that what you're doing is activism. It sounds like you might, since the animals have become such an important part of it. But your activism, if it is activism, that's the word you use. It's not overt, but it, making veganism as popular as you have somehow unbelievably managed to do compared to everybody else. Uh, it is obviously, one of the ways that you change the world. So how do you feel about the project of animal activism? You just mentioned that, one of the things that went through your mind when you saw that chicken sandwich was your personal karma. Do you think that veganism can change the world? Is it an essentially personal choice that you just encourage people to adopt? Is this the big project?
That's a great question, Marianne. Um, I think that the world suffers from what I call, like, the great sins of humanity, right? To me, the first of those is slavery. Like, that's, like, the biggest sin that we have ever committed, as human beings. What we continue to do to the planet will literally lead to our demise as a species because of how greedy we have been with it. And I think the way that I view our treatment of animals is an extrapolation of that sort of greed,
Yeah.
unrepentant greed, and the pillaging of the things that we have been granted. And so it's not like siloed, I guess, from these other things is sort of the way that I think about it. It's actually just the same thing: compassion, grace, fairness, like all balance, whatever you want to call it. They're all part of it. And I think that's very reminiscent of, I talk about this in my first book when I met with Jeong Kwan Sunim. She's a Korean monk, and how she was like, she had struggled with the word vegan because in Korea for a very long time there was no such thing as the word vegan. It just didn't exist. And so when I told her, "Oh, I am the Korean vegan," at that time the word vegan barely existed in Korea. And so she's like, "Vegan, not vegan. I've been eating this way, which is plant-based for my whole life basically since she became a monk, and people have been eating this way in Korea for 1,000 years." Long before this word vegan existed. And the way that she explained it to me was it's just an extrapolation of the basic precept that when you hurt something, you are hurting yourself. It's like physics, right? Whatever energy you put in, that's going to rebound back to you. So when you hurt a plant, when you hurt an animal, that's going to rebound back to you. And the world suffers in this net way as a result of that. And so when you think about it that way, I see animal activism as an extrapolation of all the other things that are, that the world is suffering from because
Yeah.
of that. And so I think maybe that's why my activism isn't as overt because it's, again, just another piece of all the other things that I talk about, whether it's racism or misogyny or anything else. I will say also, Mariann, I'll be very candid, my audience is largely not vegan.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I have to be sort of like, okay,
Absolutely.
like, how do I feed them with the airplane? Like, oh, like, how do I get them to take my message in a way without turning them off and letting them slam the door in my face?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I didn't mean to imply that your message should be anything different than what it is. Obviously, you're accomplishing more than than almost anybody. So,
Oh, well,
I really
I
was just I was just curious about how you thought about it and but not that there was any flaw in it. And I love this, saying, "When you do harm to others, you do harm to yourself." And kind of for not the nicest reason, but I just think it kind of appeals to people's selfishness,
It does, I mean, like,
which is
but
a
you have
strong
to.
motivation.
Yeah, you gotta meet people where they are. It's like, if you explain it to them that way, it's like, "I'm actually looking out for you. I'm not," like, however you wanna do it, but, I mean, just from a mental health perspective, and I
Absolutely.
firmly endorse that from my own personal experience, like, the weight that lifted off of me once I decided this is my path, I will never eat in a way that will cause unnecessary harm to animals. I'm like, finally, like, my body is aligned with my spirit. Like, that's how I felt, and that clicking is just something I never want to give up.
Yeah, I that's so well said, and it resonates with me. My first book, which was a memoir, really talked about how veganism helped me come back into my body in terms of like overcoming trauma and overcoming disordered eating and things like that. So it's, approaching it from a different perspective. But when you said my body is aligned with my spirit, that just really resonated with me. It's really
Yeah.
beautifully said. So the first Korean restaurant I ever went to was Hangawi in New York
Oh, I love
City.
that restaurant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So do we. And of course it serves a variation of temple cuisine. And as a result, I guess I just assumed that Korean food was very vegan friendly. So can you tell us a little bit about temple cuisine and how it compares to the more mainstream Korean diet?
Yeah. So I also thought that Korean food would be very vegan friendly. And depending on how you define vegan friendly, like it can be, in that you just need to remove one ingredient to make it vegan. But that one ingredient, fish sauce, is in almost everything that they make in Korea. And so kimchi, which looks from the outside to be extremely vegan friendly because it looks just like it's just a vegetable, is not vegan. A lot of bibimbap, which looks very vegan friendly because it's just rice with a bunch of vegetables. A lot of those vegetables are seasoned with fish sauce. So in that sense, yes, it's vegan friendly, but it's hard to be vegan in Korea because everything has fish sauce in it, right? So that is the mainstream Korean diet is very bold, heavy flavors, fish sauce, garlic, ginger, lots of onions, spring onions, green onions. This is in almost every savory recipe that you're going to find. Temple cuisine, isn't just the removal of animal products, i.e., no fish sauce. It's also the removal of alliums in many cases. So, for example, when I've been to a lot of the cooking classes that Jeong Kwan Sunim, the Buddhist monk I mentioned in the beginning, that she teaches. She does not use garlic. She does not use onions. She relies heavily on, fruits like fermented berries or, sweeteners made out of brown rice and things like that in order to flavor a lot of the food. So they're relying on fruits, but they're also relying heavily on fermentation in order to create the flavor that garlic and onions and fish sauce would create a shortcut of. So that's the way temple food is in my sort of experience in watching it being prepared. But it's also like this idea of gentleness. When you taste temple food, it's not going to explode in your gut in the same way that I think a lot of mainstream Korean food is experienced. And I think that's, again, extrapolation of this gentleness of being. Think of Buddhism as walking through a garden, and when you walk through it, you want it to be that nobody even realized that a human walked through it. Your footsteps are so gentle. You tried so hard to be respectful of all the living things in that. That is the idea, I think, of Buddhism, because the imprint that you make, it rebounds on you, and oftentimes in a violent way. And so it's the same thing with the food, which is let's be gentle with its preparation, let's be gentle with its consumption, let's be gentle with its flavor.
And, I mean, at least if Hangawi is a good representation of that, it's still extremely flavorful and,
It is.
I guess it doesn't have the intensity of more mainstream Korean food, like because Korean food is very intense, but I recommend Hangawi to anybody who's
Me
going to
too.
New York City because it is one of the best.
It's delicious. I
So,
wish they had one in every state in America.
it's such a beautiful restaurant.
It
It's
is.
just a lovely place to eat.